Thanks for having me, June. I'm actually no stranger this particular campus. So my wife that you just saw, she's a family medicine doctor at the student clinic here. So if you go to the health clinic, you may have seen her, Dr. Perkins. And as you mentioned, in 2016, I was selected as a Halcyon Fellow with some students here. One student in particular, which is really famous, he's become famous, been on Good Morning America and kind of traveled the whole country now, is Philip Wong. He is the co-founder of Misfit Juicery, which you may have seen the juices locally as well. He was a student when he started that company. And so I'm going to give a little bit of commentary about that experience. And we actually had our first 2 interns from this campus as well. There's a professor in, I think it's a sociology department, yeah. Sarah Stiles. She teaches a social enterprise or social entrepreneurship class. We got 2 of her students as our first interns. So I'm very familiar with the Georgetown campus. So happy to be here. Share a little bit about my experience as well as some of the things I've learned in this particular journey, social entrepreneurship. And I'll make a quick introduction, give an overview, and then have more of a dialogue for Q&A. And I have been a student as well. So I incubated my startup when I was a grad student at a Harvard Kennedy School. And I took a class by Professor Builder, which was social enterprise. It was a good, famous class, good class, great professor. And one thing that struck me and kind of got my mind thinking as to why I should go ahead and pursue the idea that I had was this idea of application. And the way that we defined what social innovation meant was it was the application of technology for a social benefit, right? And so the application part is really the emphasis. And we looked at an example where technology in and of itself is neutral, right? So a good example is gunpowder. If you think of gunpowder, you know, the way it's used now in cannons and artillery and all that, but the origins of gunpowder, it was a discovery that was really for medicinal purposes at first by alchemists in China, and then it became something for entertainment. It wasn't for, I think, like 100 years later until it began to be used in arrows, and then it began to be weaponized. So the discovery itself was neutral, and it was just the application that determined the impact. And so that's the way I look at our role as social entrepreneurs. We're looking at discoveries and innovations, but we're looking at the application of it for a particular social benefit. And so the way I think about technology is that the tech itself is neutral, right? I was at a conference and someone had an app that just said yo, and it was just like you could text different ways of saying yo. I just thought, no, the world doesn't need this, right? Like this is an application of a technology that is just completely irrelevant. It's not really benefiting too many people. And so what I began to think about is what would the world look like if we thought about applying tech in ways that benefited different segments of society. So application is kind of the first emphasis point. And there's 2 ideas I want to share with you that have gotten me through incubators and to begin to have some initial impact with what I did, and then I'll share with you my innovation, which is the theory of change and value proposition. So I'm sure you'll get this in this class, or you'll certainly come across it when you go into your own enterprises and you go to make impact in the world. This idea of a theory of change. And the theory of change is where you really create your compelling argument as to why your application for benefit makes sense. This is where you get to be persuasive. And you get a lot of buy-in if you can master the story of your theory of change. And if you do grant applications, if you deal with philanthropists, you'll see this over and over again. There's logic models, there's flow charts, there's all kind of things involved. But I would leave you like your first moment when you think you have something that could benefit a segment of society is to really spend time and master that theory of change. What's the logical sequence, and what are you introducing? What are you applying that's ultimately going to have beneficial effect? The second thing would be to master your value proposition. And this is where the frameworks like the Lean Startup, those ideas come into place. Oftentimes, and I've been a mentor with entrepreneurs as well, I run a certificate program. I even teach this in the jails now in Montgomery County, which is we have a great idea. You think it makes logical sense, of course, and you go about to create the product or service and you want to apply it. But oftentimes what happens is we don't take that second moment and take a step back and say, has the set of benefits and the thing that I've designed, does it actually fit with the segment that I'm targeting? And that fit is important because that really is what binds the value proposition together. It has the set of things that you've developed. Does it fit the need? And within that, there's this idea of called being proximate to the problem. And oftentimes you'll see innovators and entrepreneurs will come up with these great ideas, but because we haven't been proximate enough to the problem, we miss the mark. And our product or service lands with a thud, it doesn't accelerate, it doesn't gain traction. So another piece of this value proposition that I would encourage you to do is to be as close to the problem as possible. Because that's where you develop the instincts, that's where you develop the detailed understanding of how to really accelerate your solution and ultimately have the impact that you want. So those are the overarching ideas that I would leave you with. I'm sure you're going to study in this course and you'll gain as you